Hey everyone, and welcome to the video about Python. We're going to do a crash course and just go over basically all the fundamentals of Python. So what these crash course videos are like is we go through a few items that we believe are relevant to every programming language. Okay, so this is just the very basics of a programming language. It's nothing Python specific, but it's just to get you started. These videos are really meant for people who have already learned a programming language and they just want to quickly get started with another programming language. And so this is the beginner version of our crash course, and then we'll have more videos to go into more depth and show like Python specific stuff that's still basic, but it's different than another programming language you've seen. So yeah, anyway, I'm Keith Holliday.
I'm Craig Holliday.
And this is Quality. So we do quality videos on code. All right, so let's get started. So I already have VS Code up, and I have Python installed. So if you need to do that, we're going to have another video on installing. But basically, go to the Python website, click that install button, should be good to go. All right, so we're going to start here with a basic project. We're just going to create an index.py file. So index.py, and this is the default for running Python. So I'm not going to. There's some specific Python stuff here. But again, I'm not doing any Python specific. If you've learned another language, I'm going to just show you the things that are very similar in Python. We're going to open up a terminal, and we're going to just do the basic hello world program. So there's a global function in Python, just like in a lot of programming languages. Like if you're from JavaScript, there's the console.log. We have a print, and we're just going to say hello world. This is always a good way to get started. So I have a terminal down here, and I'm just going to type Python index.py. And there we go, printed out hello world. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to look up how do we declare variables. All right, so in Python, it's a dynamically typed language, so you don't have to specify the type. And there's no keyword for saying a variable. You just simply do the name of the variable equals, and then the data you want to store in it. So for example, we're going to do name equals to Keith. So here I'm storing a string Keith in name. We're going to print it out just to make sure. I'm going to go down here, run that Python index.py. There we go. We just learned variables. Same thing happens for numbers. So let's just do that. Age equals 12. Print it out. There you go. Craig, just stop me if you have any questions.
Will do.
All right, cool. Now, the next thing we always look at is data types. Okay, so we're going to cover, well, we already did strings and numbers, so we'll just take a little bit look at that again. And we'll then look at lists, and then we'll look at dictionaries. So these are the basic types that you see in almost every language. There's probably some other ones too. Oh, in a Boolean, sorry. Let's do Boolean as well. Our first variable is a string, so you can do strings with quotes, and you can also do single quotes as well. Both are the same thing in Python. There's also many other quotes that Python has, but we'll just stay here. So for numbers, you can do integers like this. You can also do a float with the decimal. So let's do 18.5, for example. Go ahead and print that out. Python also does have support for many other types of numerics, like hex code, for example. But we won't talk about that right now. Just do the basics. Okay, so then also Boolean. So Boolean is just true, false, like in most other languages, but there is a difference in the capitalization. So has moved, I don't know. And let's see, true. And then false is the opposite. So has candy, Halloween's coming up, false. Okay, so notice the casing here. There's capital T, capital F. Other than that, they work the same way. So go ahead and print this out. Oops, sorry. There we go. All right, so let's get to something more helpful. Let's look at lists in Python. Now, lists are very special in Python. You can do lots of cool stuff with them. So again, another video for that. We're going to look at the basic operations that you see in most programming languages. Just so you know, lists are the same thing as like arrays in other languages. So this is the same concept. They call them lists in Python, but it's also called an array in other languages. So they're dynamic, and they can also have multiple types in them. So some programming languages will only let you have the same type. like only numbers or only strings or only floats. You can mix and match in Python, and you can actually do a whole lot of stuff. All right, so let's do an example. Let's just call it a mixed list here. And I'll just put in some number. Oh, so you denote a list with the square brackets, very common here. You don't have to do any kind of new or anything like that. It's just square brackets. Very similar to JavaScript, for example. So we'll do 1, 2, and then put some strings in here. And then also we will just put some other variables in here, right? Just from the top. Let's go ahead and print that out. There you go. All right, so let's look at how to access items in a list. So to do that, you just use the array access notation, which is similar to other programming languages. You just put a bracket here and then the index that you want. So let's just put 3. Go ahead and print that out. Okay. You can also modify a list in the same way. Use that access notation and just change the variable. So you can change it to anything you want. It doesn't have to be the same type. So let's just change it to a float, for example. Because it was a string, it was the number 2, or it was the word 2. There you go. Now we've changed the variable. To delete, there is a keyword called del, D-E-L, short for delete, right? So we can do mixed list of 4. Then let's print out the list afterwards. There you go. You can see that we no longer have that name variable in there. And okay, let's just briefly look at some cool helpful functions with lists. I have 3 here that I want to show you. They're not all of them are functions, sorry. So you can, to get the length of a list, you actually have to use the built-in length function. And then you put the list inside of it, that'll print it out. You can also add lists together, which is something very special. It's, concatenating a list. In other programming languages, you have to use like a method called concat. In JavaScript or in Python, you just hit the plus button. So let me create another list here. Another list equals, 4, 5, 6. And then you can, let's see, create a combined, which is mixed list plus another list. That operator is already overloaded, and you just get to combine both arrays that way. There you go. And then one really cool thing is in Python, like I said, lists can do a lot of things. I just want to show you briefly that Python pays a lot of attention to lists. You can do a repeated list just by using the multiplication operator. So let's do just one called rep for repeated, and we'll just do a number 4 here, and then multiply it by 12. And this should create a list of 4 12s. There we go.
12 fours.
12 fours, exactly. The other way around. All right, cool. And that's list for you. So the next data type we're going to look at is dictionaries or maps or hash maps or whatever. If you're in Java, you probably have 100 of these because they're different, but they implement them a lot for special occasions, right? They're just called dictionaries in Python. All right, so let's just let's delete some of this code up here, or we can just keep these in here because I want to use them. All right, so we'll create a dictionary. You just say the name of the variable equal to, and then you use the curly braces. Very common to other languages. Something that is different is you have to put the quotes around both sides. So if you're coming from a JSON implementation or maybe even Go, I can't remember, but you have to have the quotes around both sides here for your key and for your value. So for example, if I want to do name, I have to put the key in quotes and then colon, and then I can put like the other variable here. Right. You can also just put a number in here or a variable in here, any kind of type. But notice that you have to have the quotes on both sides. So, sorry, let me do like last name to do a string. So holiday. There we go. Okay. You can also add, so that's how you initialize a dictionary. You can also add in the same way as expected with like the bracket notation. Again, you just pass the quotes here. There is a dot notation, but that is, I don't think that's default on dictionaries. You have to have special types of data structures, but those are more Pythonic. So I don't know, another item, and then we'll just say equals to false. All right, let's go ahead and print this out, see what we get.
You'll probably get an issue with false because you didn't capitalize it.
Right, exactly. See, casing matters. It also didn't highlight for me. I should notice that. All right, let's go ahead and print it. There we go. We got a nice little dictionary there. All right, cool. So that's how to create and access. Okay, delete. We can use the same thing that we learned for arrays. Use that delete keyword, then profile of like name. So let's go ahead and run that. And that would be it for dictionaries. Next, we're going to look at some basic operators, just the operators that you always see, like the plus, times, minus. We already saw a little bit of the plus. And we'll also look at some compares, so you know how to do that. Again, nothing tricky about this in Python. They do have some magic operators, but again, we're not going to go over those. So let's just create some, like 2 numbers to start with here. We'll say first equals 10 and second equals 12. All right, so I'm just going to real quickly go through lots of operators and lots of compares. So again, crash course, really fast. All right, so we can do print first plus second. Okay, that's how you add things. And then I'm going to copy this 4 times for 4 basic operators. You can do a minus, nothing tricky there. You can do the multiplication, and you can do the divide. And there we go. All right, so let's also do the compares real quick so you can just know how to do them in Python. All right, so let me start, delete. All right, so we can do for equal to, just 2 equal signs, just like normal. You can do not equal to, which is the exclamation mark and then equal sign. You can do greater than. Sorry, yep, that's good. My compiler was too slow. You can do greater than equal to, etc. Okay, so again, if you already know a programming language, this should be all super familiar to you. Less than seconds, and let's just, for completion, less than equal to. All right, let's run it. There you go. Spitting out those booleans. Okay, getting to a little bit more interesting. We got 3 more things to go. Now we're going to look at control flow. Now this is where things get a little bit different. All right, so we'll keep this up here because we need some things to compare for control flow. So by control flow, I mean using ifs, else ifs, and else. There's also a switch statement, but I'll just cover the if and else. So Python, they don't use brackets that much. You did see me use the curly braces, the brackets for arrays and for dictionaries. But when you're flowing and indenting and stuff, you don't have brackets. So Python relies heavily on spaces. So if you want your code to be well, you have to space and indent correctly. If you don't indent correctly, it's going to fail. So for example, if I do an indentation right here, in many programming languages, this will be fine. The compiler will not care. In Python, they care. So let me just do a print second here. And this should give me an error. It says unexpected indent. So they really heavily enforce that indentation. And there it goes. Now it's showing the error. All right, so that comes to play in our next couple of lessons. All right, so let's do the if statement. So we can do if first is equal to second and then colon. Okay, so look at this notation real quick. We don't have parentheses, okay, around it, around the conditional. And we have a colon, which starts the body of the if statement. So no braces here. And then if you want something underneath the condition, it has to have that tab. It has to be indented 1 tab over. Okay, so let's just print first is better. Okay, then you have to go back and align it with that if statement. You can do else if, or sorry, it's called elif is the keyword. So that's the else if. So then we can do if else, well, it's not going to get here, but you know, if first is greater than second, print I am here, and then again align it and do else, print I am the default. Okay, there you go. That's control flow. So this is the special Python part. So if you're in a different language, this is the key here, is that Python pays heavily to indentations. So we're going to see that in our next 2 sections as well. All right, so I'll just keep this up here, and let's take a look at loops. Loops are also kind of cool. So Python has many types of loops. They also have the while and the for loops. Those are the two loops we'll show you. Yep, so let's get started. All right, let's take a look at the while loop. So I'm just gonna do a basic example here. Count equals 0, while count is less than, let's say, 10. So there's that colon again, okay? No parentheses with a condition. And then we'll just print out the counts. And then we'll do count plus equals 1. So I didn't show you the plus equals before. So you can do count equals count plus 1. But if you're in a different program language, they have these assignment operators, these different types. So you can use plus equals, which will automatically take the variable you have and add 1 to it, right? Hopefully you've seen this before, but if not, now you do. Now you got it. All right, so that's your while loop. Let's go ahead and print it. Sorry, let me print afterwards so you know it's done. There you go. Now we have a for loop. Now, for loops usually have those 3 conditionals. Not in Python. I'm not even sure if you can do those 3 conditionals in Python because they don't use it so much. Their for loops are, they're based on iterators, but let's not get into the details about iterators if you've never heard them before. But again, lists, very popular in Python. Iterators and lists, very magical. For loops, all about that stuff. So you don't really use this while loop here. You use all these cool magical for loops or these iterators, okay? Anyway, let's just take a look at the for loop though. So let's say we have a list again. So let me create a list of to-dos. I'm just gonna do 1, 2, 3. And the basic for loop uses the in keyword. So we'll do for, and then we'll say, now you declare a variable to be your looped over item that takes a value. So usually you say like I equals 0, I less than this length, and then you'll grab, that'll be your indexer. Instead of using indexer, you just set the variable. So for to do in to-do lists, colon, so no parentheses around the condition. And so what this will do is it'll go over your to-do list and automatically set each value at the index to that variable to do. So let's just print it out and see how that looks. Okay, very nice and succinct. There you go. So you can say, sorry, let me go ahead and comment this out. So you can see down here that it automatically prints 1, 2, 3. No, you don't have to do like to do equals to do list of I, none of that kind of stuff. You just immediately get the variable. And lots of programming languages have this now, right? I know Java has it. JavaScript obviously has it now, so you can do all this kind of stuff. Okay, that's it for loops. We got one more thing, and we're gonna look at how to create functions. Some of you might be asking, why not classes as well? I think first of all, classes aren't in every language. There's lots of functional languages being popular, so we're not going to cover classes in this video, but we will in a later one. And I also think that's a little bit more advanced if you're kind of a beginner just learning different languages. Okay, so let's do a, let me go ahead and delete let me go ahead and delete some of this code. All right, to create a function, very similar to other languages, we use the def keyword, def, which stands for define or definition, right? So instead of using func or function, we're going to use def. So we're going to start with the def keyword, and then I'm going to create a function that returns a full name. So we'll do get full name. That's the name of my function. Now you do use the parentheses. They come back in. Okay, and then you just specify the list of your variables. Again, Python has some cool things you can do here for variables, just like JavaScript's like spread notation, later video. So we'll do first name, last name. We're going to take 2 arguments, and then we're going to return first name plus. And so just real quick, I'm just introducing a fun concept here. This is just concatenation. You can just use that plus operator, very common to other languages, to just concatenate a bunch of strings together. All right, that's function. Again, look at how we indented, right? The indentation is very important. If you backspace here, it's not going to work. You gotta use that indentation. All right, so to call a function, same thing as other languages. Get full name. So you type the name of the function, parentheses, and then you pass in the arguments that match the parameters up top. So Keith holiday, and then we're going to go ahead and print that out. There you go. All right, that's a crash course. We went through the basics of a language really fast. This is a strategy that we use for learning languages. We just get those core fundamental concepts that are common to every language. We get those first, and then we move on to the specific things for those language, and then we move on, etc. But this is how you get a nice anchor to be like, okay, how can I just program? How can I just do what I do in another language at the very, very basic level? Here you go. All right, thanks for watching our video on Python Crash Course. Post any questions you have in the comments below and we'll get back to you. We'll also put any links and resources in the notes for this video, and we'll see you next time.